My name is Femi Kuti. I'm a musician and you're watching AFK Insider.
And my name is Steve Hendel, and I'm the executive producer of the documentary Finding Fela, and you are watching AFK Insider.
I wouldn't say following my father's footsteps per se. I always knew I wanted to play music from when I can remember. It was just a question of how, when, and then at the time I realized I really truly wanted to play music, I started to realize how big my father's image was. Every corner, everybody knew him. And then it wasn't me asking myself, it was his fans asking, when are you going to play music? Are you not going to be like your father? And this was a very huge pressure on the streets, in school, everywhere. And then my fears started to arise, and it was more like, oh my God, will I be able to live up to this heritage? When I finally decided to delve into the playing music, it was, then I now realized I would never be my father. I knew I had to find my voice. So this was the turning point of my life, of where I knew that I had to set. But it was a very dramatic period, because my father wanted me to take over his heritage I was dressing like him, everything like him. So I think the final outcome was I must take over from his own point of view. But I wanted to be myself, so we had 6 years of conflict between us. But I think in the end, he understood where I was coming from, and he appreciated what I was doing.
Well, I think, the political edge or the political aspects of the story, they're just part of the story. I think it makes it more interesting to me because, the music is about social justice and human dignity and the struggle for human rights, and I think that's a big part of what the legacy of Fela is. That you got to stand for something, you have to be committed to something, you have to be willing to fight and die for something, and he was. And that struggle continues. There's a lot of, it's easy to say that struggle continues in Nigeria, but that struggle continues in the United States too. And I think that's, one of the things that appeals to me is that there's a very universal need for the message of being committed and being willing to, speak out, is in all of our lives. And I think that's, really what, I think that's one of the things that, it moves me particularly about Fela's story.
I don't think it's different, because you just have to understand it's two different eras. My father did pave the way for people like me to talk freely. At the time my father was expressing his views, he was locked up, beaten, lost everything. It was beating after beating, arrest after arrest. And I think he paid a very huge price. Now, I have never been arrested on my own. The only time I was arrested was when I was staying with him. Probably I'm harassed by government, press agencies who try to pretend I'm talking garbage or things like this, but I can handle this. But physically, I have had quite a very easy ride. But then you have to understand that there are many people that are very outspoken now in Nigeria. And this is due to the fact that my father paid that huge price for us to be, he opened our minds with his music. And when you understand the 70s, what he went through in the 70s, when human rights activists said to come out in the 80s, this was due to the fact that my father stood alone for a decade and probably a decade and a half on his own, paying a very huge price for Nigerians to express their views against oppression or injustice there. So I think it's really similar. It's just that you have to understand different times. So if my father, and I do call politicians or a dictator, for instance, a soldier who is I call names, I do all the same things he has done. But I think I'm not paying the kind of price he paid for me to be able to express my views more freely than he had the opportunity to.